The sky above Varelia burned a dull orange, the sun obscured by thick clouds of ash and smoke. The planet's surface was scarred and battered. Once lush forests lay in ruin, and great cities that had thrived for centuries were now little more than rubble. Fires still flickered in the distance, casting an eerie glow against the darkening horizon. On the ground, the remaining Varelians moved quietly through the ruins of what had once been the capital city, Tyrellis. Their faces were drawn and tired, their eyes heavy with grief and resignation. The war had dragged on for decades, and with each passing year, hope slipped further away like sand through desperate fingers. Commander Lyris stood atop a shattered building's broken steps, overlooking the battered troops assembled below. Once proud armor was scratched and dented, the emblem of the Varelian Defense Force barely visible beneath layers of grime. The weight of command rested heavily on her shoulders. She scanned the weary faces of her soldiers, some barely more than children. Others veterans worn thin by loss and hardship. Our scouts report enemy patrols closing in, she said, her voice steady despite the ache inside. They grow bolder every day. Soon they will be here in full force. A young soldier, Caro, stepped forward, his voice trembling. Commander, the Imperial forces have pushed us back from the northern passes. Without reinforcements, we cannot hold the city. Lyris nodded grimly. I know. Our weapons are failing and our supplies run dangerously low. But we must stand for Varelia. For those who cannot fight. A murmur rippled through the ranks, part defiance, part despair. The Empire's grip tightened, and the Varelians were running out of options. Their technology was outdated, their communication systems jammed by the enemy. Every day felt like a step closer to oblivion, in the shadows nearby. An elder named Meles watched the scene with a heavy heart. She had seen the rise and fall of many empires. The cycles of hope and despair played out countless times. She approached Commander Lyris quietly. Lyris Meles said softly, there is talk among the people. Rumors that no one wants to believe that the humans might come. Lyris frowned. Humans. They are legends. Stories told to children to soothe their fears. No fleet has come this far in decades. Meles shook her head slowly. Legends or not, some say a fleet was seen on the edge of the system. Ships unlike any we have known, bold and fast. If they come to our aid, it could change everything. Lyris considered the elder's words, but years of betrayal and false hope made her reluctant to believe. Hope is a luxury we cannot afford. Night fell quickly. The city swallowed by darkness, broken only by the flicker of distant fires and the occasional flare of enemy searchlights. The cold crept into bones, long exhausted by hardship. As the Varelians settled into uneasy rest, Lyris found a quiet moment to herself, gazing up at the sky. The stars were faint behind the pollution, but she caught a glimpse of something unusual. A faint glimmer moving steadily through the black. Her heart quickened. Was it a trick of the mind? Or perhaps a sign that the tide of war might yet shift? Across the horizon, unseen by the weary defenders, distant lights grew brighter. Human. Starships sleek and powerful, cut through the void with purpose. Their arrival was a gamble. A risk taken by a species that few on Varelia had ever encountered. But for the first time in years, hope flickered faintly in the darkness. Dawn broke over the battered landscape of Varelia, casting long shadows across the ruins of Tyrellis. The air was thick with smoke, carrying the acrid scent of destruction and loss. For the Varelians who remained, each new day was a test of endurance and resolve. But today was different. Something in the air felt charged, as if the planet itself held its breath, far above. In orbit, sleek human starships hovered in formation, their smooth hulls gleaming faintly despite the murky atmosphere. They were unlike any ships the Varelians had ever seen less massive and more streamlined than Imperial dreadnoughts, but no less formidable. Their presence was unmistakable, an unspoken promise of change. On the surface, first human dropships pierced through the clouds, engines humming with a steady power. They touched down on scorched earth near the outskirts of Torellis, stirring dust and debris. From their ramps, soldiers descended a tall, sturdy, and clad in armor that gleamed with an unfamiliar but practical design. Commander Lyris and her officers watched from a safe distance, their faces a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and cautious hope. The humans moved with confident precision, but there was an easy, almost relaxed quality to their posture that stood in stark contrast to the tense Varelian forces. Captain Jonas led the human troops. His eyes scanned the horizon with sharp intelligence. He was not here to conquer, nor to impose. His mission was clear: to aid a people on the brink of annihilation. "We come with weapons, yes," Jonas said to his second-in-command, "but also with something else. Experience, adaptability, hope." Lyris approached cautiously, flanked by her closest advisors. As they drew near, Captain Jonas offered a firm but friendly handshake. There was an unspoken understanding in that gesture, a bond forged not from shared history, but from necessity. "We know little of your kind," Lyris said, her voice steady but laced with doubt. "Why help us? Why risk yourselves?" Jonas smiled, a glint of determination in his eyes. "Because hope is never lost while someone fights for it. We've seen empires rise and fall, worlds consumed by darkness and despair. But humans, ... we fight harder when the odds are against us. That's what we bring, and we intend to prove it." As the hours passed, human engineers began setting up field hospitals, communication relays, and supply depots. Their technology was advanced yet rugged, designed for quick deployment and adaptability in unpredictable environments. The Varelians, at first hesitant, soon found themselves drawn to the humans' energy. Soldiers who had once been paralyzed by fear now trained alongside these new allies, learning unfamiliar tactics and strategies. The humans moved with a fluidity that defied the Empire's rigid doctrine, turning terrain to their advantage, striking swiftly, then melting away like shadows in one training session. A young Varelian sharpshooter named Kale watched a human soldier dismantle and reassemble a weapon faster than anyone he'd ever seen. "How do they do it so quickly?" he whispered to his friend. "Practice," Kale replied, "and something else. They don't give up." That attitude began to spread through the ranks like wildfire. Where once despair had taken root, determination now grew, but not everyone welcomed the newcomers. Imperial spies and saboteurs moved through the city, observing, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Empire was no stranger to deception, and it would not tolerate interference on Virelia. Without a fight at night, under the cover of darkness, an explosion rocked the human supply depot. Flames licked the sky as emergency teams rushed in to contain the damage. Human medics worked tirelessly to tend to the injured, their calm efficiency a beacon amid chaos. Lyris stood beside Captain Jonas amid the wreckage. "They will not stop," she said quietly. "Not until we are crushed." Jonas nodded grimly. "Then we will show them what humans and Varelians can do together. We are not just allies. We are the spark that will light the fire of freedom." Across the ruined city, hope was no longer just a whispered legend. It was alive, burning fiercely in the hearts of those who refused to surrender, and the humans had only just begun to fight. The sun rose again over the war-torn landscape of Varelia, but this day was unlike any before it. The faint glimmer of hope that had arrived with the humans now began to shine brighter, spreading through the ranks of the Varelian defenders like wildfire. Yet the Empire was far from beaten. and the coming battle would test the limits of everyone's resolve. Commander Lyris stood at the edge of the ruined city, watching as human squads prepared for their first coordinated strike. Their weapons gleamed under the pale light, but what caught her attention most was their manner, calm, focused, almost effortless. They moved with a confidence born of experience, not just machinery. Captain Jonas approached, nodding toward the squad. They fight differently, he said. More than firepower, it's about thinking on your feet, using the terrain, blending offense and defense in ways the Empire doesn't expect. Lyris studied the soldiers as they loaded equipment into transport skimmers. They seem unpredictable, almost chaotic. Jonas smiled. That's the point. The Empire expects rigid formations, predictable tactics. We don't give them that. The mission was clear. Strike at an Imperial supply convoy moving through the eastern valleys, a vital artery keeping the Empire's war machine fed. Varelian scouts had tracked it for days, but every attempt to intercept had ended in disaster. As the human and Varelian units moved out, the air was thick with tension. The convoy was heavily guarded. The Empire's patrols were ruthless, hidden in the dense foliage overlooking the narrow pass. Kale, the young sharpshooter, adjusted his scope and held his breath. Nearby, a human soldier named Reyes checked his gear with practiced efficiency, speaking quietly to Kale. "We're not here to win with numbers," Reyes said. "We win by being smarter. Hit hard, then vanish before they know what happened." Kale nodded, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "Show me." At the signal, the humans unleashed a barrage of distractions, small drones buzzing ahead, emitting pulses that scrambled Imperial sensors. From the shadows, Varelians slipped forward, cutting communication lines and sabotaging vehicles. The Imperial soldiers scrambled to respond, but the humans' unpredictable strikes kept them off balance. They fired from unexpected angles, used terrain features to shield advances, and shifted formations faster than their foes could react. Kale watched in awe as the humans adapted to every change in the battlefield, ducking behind rocks, climbing cliffs, and using improvised weapons crafted from scavenged parts. When a sudden counterattack came, a human medic sprinted forward, dragging a wounded Varelian to safety, while firing a compact energy pistol with her free hand. Her quick actions saved the soldier's life and inspired others to press forward. By the time the convoy's remnants tried to regroup, the combined forces had seized critical supplies and crippled the Empire's logistics in the region. The victory was not just tactical, it was a message. Back at the makeshift base, Lyris gathered her commanders. "They fight not with brute force, but with mind and spirit," she said. "Their strength is in their unpredictability and unity." Captain Jonas added, "Humans adapt quickly, and they never back down. The Empire isn't used to fighting opponents who can change the rules on the fly." As word of the victory spread, more Varelians volunteered to join the fight. Old divisions melted away, replaced by a shared belief in the possibility of freedom. Even those who had once doubted the humans now saw them as more than allies. They were a symbol of resilience. That night, as the stars blinked through thinning clouds, Lyris walked among the troops. She paused beside Kale, who was cleaning his rifle. "Your people have taught us something vital," she said softly. "That strength comes not only from weapons, but from the will to fight when all seems lost." Kale smiled, eyes bright with hope, "and the humans show us that hope is worth fighting for." Meanwhile, far above Varelia, Imperial commanders scrambled to adjust their strategy. The humans' tactics had shattered expectations, forcing a new reckoning. The Empire's confidence was shaken, and its grip on the planet grew tenuous. But the war was far from over. In the shadows of a ruined world, a new force had emerged, one born from unity, ingenuity, and an unbreakable spirit. Humanity and Viralia would never be the same, The victory at the Eastern Valley was more than a tactical success. It was a spark in the dark, a signal that the tide of the war might finally turn. Word traveled swiftly across Veralia, carried by messengers and whispered in hidden gathering places. The once fractured tribes and clans, long divided by ancient rivalries and grievances, began to hear a new call, a call to unity. Commander Lyris stood before a gathering of tribal leaders in a battered hall deep beneath the city. The room was dimly lit by flickering lanterns, shadows dancing on cracked walls. Around her sat representatives of Aurelia's fractured people, some wary, others openly hostile. "We face a common enemy," Lyris began, her voice steady but passionate. "The Empire's chains threaten us all. Alone, we fall. Together, we stand a chance." Murmurs rose, some nods, but many eyes remained cold, filled with old grudges. Meles the Elder, who had first spoken of the humans' arrival, stepped forward. "The humans do not come as conquerors," she said. "They fight alongside us, not above us. Their strength has rekindled something in us all. It is time to put aside the past and embrace the future." A tense silence followed, broken only by the crackling of a distant fire outside. Finally, one of the older tribal leaders, a fierce woman named Sira, spoke. "I have seen too many promises broken," Sira said quietly. "But I see in your eyes, Commander, a truth we have not felt for a long time. Perhaps this time, there is hope." Lyris nodded, a quiet smile touching her lips. "Then let us begin." Outside, the city was alive. With preparation, Varelian smiths and human engineers worked side by side, repairing weapons, crafting armor, and fortifying defenses. Children who had known only fear now practiced drills alongside human trainers. Their laughter a fragile but powerful sound. Kale, now recognized as a skilled sharpshooter, stood with a group of young warriors, listening intently as a human soldier demonstrated new battle techniques. The differences between their cultures melted away in the heat of shared purpose. One afternoon, as the sun filtered weakly through ash-streaked clouds, Lyris joined Captain Jonas and his officers in a strategy tent. Maps of Veralia were spread across tables, dotted with markers representing Imperial forces and friendly units. "The Empire will not sit idle," Jonas said. "They will strike back with everything they have." Lyris traced a finger along the map. "Our best chance is to disrupt their supply lines and communications. Without those, their front lines will crumble." Jonas smiled grimly. "A scorched earth approach, but surgical. I like it." The plan was bold, coordinated raids to cut the Empire off from reinforcements and force them into a defensive posture. It required precision, timing, and trust as the first joint operation launched. The combined forces moved with renewed vigor. Humans and Varelians fought side by side, their strengths complementing each other. Where the Empire expected scattered resistance, they found a disciplined, adaptable foe. Kale found himself in the thick of it, moving through the underbrush with human scouts. Their rapid communication and improvisation turned what should have been a chaotic skirmish into a decisive strike. The battle was fierce but brief. The Imperial supply convoy was ambushed and destroyed, leaving the enemy scrambling to respond. Among the victorious, cheers rang out, a sound almost forgotten on Veralia. News of the victory spread like wildfire, reaching even the farthest tribal enclaves. Old tensions softened as more factions pledged allegiance to the growing alliance. The flame of hope burned brighter than ever. That night, around a campfire, Lyris and Meles watched as young Varelians exchanged stories with human soldiers. The bonds of friendship were forming, forged in the crucible of war and shared dreams. "Hope," Meles said softly, "is a fragile thing. But when nurtured, it becomes a fire that can never be extinguished. Lyris nodded. For the first time in a long time, I believe we will win. Above them, the stars shone clearer than before, as if the universe itself was watching the rebirth of a world once lost to darkness, and in the hearts of all who fought. The flame of freedom burned, fiercely ready to light the path forward. The brief taste of victory had rekindled hope among the Varelians and their new human allies. But the Empire was far from defeated. In the Imperial Command Center, orbiting a nearby moon, General Voron's cold eyes scanned reports of the setbacks inflicted by the rebels. His expression hardened with every line. "They grow too bold," he muttered. "The humans embolden these insurgents. We cannot allow this to continue." Vorons was a veteran of countless wars, ruthless and efficient. He ordered an immediate escalation, a massive strike aimed at breaking the Alliance's momentum and crushing Varelian resistance once and for all. Back on Varelia, the horizon darkened with the shadow of Imperial warships descending toward the planet's surface. The Earth trembled as artillery barrages shook the ruined city. Explosions erupted in the distance, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. Commander Lyris stood with Captain Jonas on a ridge overlooking the city's outskirts. The humans had warned that the Empire would retaliate fiercely, but nothing could have prepared them for the scale of the assault. "They're coming with everything they have," Lyris said grimly. "We need to hold the line." Jonas nodded. "Our scouts report multiple armored divisions and aerial support. The Empire wants to break us here." The Allied forces scrambled to fortify their positions. Varelian engineers worked tirelessly to repair barricades, while human soldiers distributed new equipment designed for rapid deployment. Kale adjusted his rifle on a rooftop, his sharp eyes scanning for enemy movement. The young sharpshooter felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was not a small skirmish. It was a battle for their very survival. As Imperial forces advanced, the first wave struck with overwhelming force. Tanks rolled forward, supported by air units that blasted the defenders' positions. The Varelians and humans fought back fiercely. But the enemy's firepower was relentless. Amid the chaos, human squads executed hit-and-run tactics, targeting supply lines and command units. Their unpredictability forced the Empire's forces to constantly adapt. Slowing their advance in one fierce encounter, Reyes and his team infiltrated an Imperial command bunker. Using stealth and precision, they disabled communication arrays, plunging the enemy into confusion. But the cost was high. Both sides suffered heavy casualties. Wounded soldiers cried out, medics worked frantically, and the line wavered under the Imperial onslaught. Lyris moved along the front, offering encouragement and directing reinforcements. Her voice was steady, but inside she battled rising fear. If the line broke here, all would be lost. Suddenly, the Empire unleashed a new weapon, towering machines of war, heavily armored and armed with devastating energy cannons. The behemoths tore through barricades, scattering defenders. "Fall back, regroup at Sector Delta," Lyris commanded. The retreat was chaotic, but the humans covered the withdrawal with suppressive fire, buying precious time. Jonas personally led a squad to disable one of the machines, using an experimental pulse grenade that temporarily shut down its systems. Victory was fleeting, but it gave the defenders a chance to reorganize. That night, the Allied leaders met in a dim tent. The mood was grim. "We underestimated the Empire's resolve," Jonas admitted. "They won't stop until every last one of us is crushed." Lyris nodded. "But we can't give up. If we do, everything we fought for will be lost." Meles added quietly, "The flame of hope flickers, but it does not die. We must be smarter, faster, and more united than ever." Despite the setbacks, the human Varelian alliance grew stronger. Each loss was a lesson, each retreat a step toward a lest. A new strategy. Kale, wounded but determined, looked out over the city as fires burned in the distance. "They think they can break us with fear and power," he said softly, "but they don't understand what we're fighting for." Jonas placed a hand on the young soldier's shoulder. "They don't know what humans are capable of, and neither do they know the spirit of Auralia." Across the ruined world, the Empire's wrath raged on. But somewhere deep within the hearts of the defenders, a quiet promise remained to endure, to resist, and to rise again. Because hope, once rekindled, can never be extinguished. The fires that scorched the outskirts of Torellis still smoldered. But amid the ashes, something new was stirring, a fierce determination that refused to be crushed. The Empire's latest assault had shaken the Allied forces, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had galvanized a renewed resolve to fight smarter, harder, and together. Commander Lyris stood before a worn map, her fingers tracing the complex network of Imperial supply routes. The earlier hit-and-run attacks had slowed the enemies. Advance, but more was needed. The Alliance required a decisive move, one that would strike at the heart of the Empire's war effort on Varelia. Captain Jonas joined her, eyes bright with purpose. "We need to disrupt their main supply depot. It's heavily fortified, but if we take it down, the Empire's front lines will collapse." Lyris nodded. "We'll need to coordinate a multi-pronged assault, hit them from the air, the ground, and through sabotage." Kale, still recovering from his wounds, listened intently. He had learned much from the humans, how to think beyond brute strength, how to use the terrain, how to anticipate the enemy's moves. "Let me take a team to infiltrate the depot," Kale offered. "We can disable their defenses from within." Jonas smiled, impressed by the young sharpshooter's courage. "You'll have the support of our best operatives. This mission will be dangerous, but vital." Over the next days, preparations intensified. The human engineers modified stealth equipment for the infiltration team, while Varelian scouts mapped the depot's patrols and security systems. The Alliance worked seamlessly, blending human technology and Varelian knowledge of the land. On the night of the assault, the air was thick with tension. The first wave of human fighters descended from the sky in silent dropships, lighting up the darkness with coordinated strikes. Artillery from Varelian battalions bombarded Imperial defenses, forcing the enemy to split their focus. Meanwhile, Kal and his team slipped through the shadows, bypassing sensors and guards. Their movements were calculated, swift, and silent. The depot's walls were stronger than anything Kale had ever faced, but they found weak points: sold maintenance tunnels, forgotten access doors inside. The team planted charges on critical energy conduits and weapon caches. Every second was a race against time, every breath held in suspense. Suddenly, alarms blared. A patrol had spotted them. Gunfire echoed through the tunnels. Kale's team fought fiercely, pushing forward despite the danger. The charges were set. Fall. "Back!" Kale shouted, and the team retreated just as the explosives detonated. The depot erupted in a fiery blast, shaking the ground and sending shockwaves through the enemy's ranks. Outside, the Allied forces pressed their advantage. Imperial troops, disoriented and cut off from supplies, faltered under coordinated attacks. "Commander?" Lyris watched the battle unfold from a command post, her heart pounding. The tide was turning. After months of grinding conflict, the Empire's grip was slipping as the sun rose. Revealing the charred remains of the depot, the Allied forces held firm. The victory was hard-won but undeniable. In the aftermath, the Alliance's ranks swelled. More Varelians joined, inspired by the growing momentum. Even some former Imperial sympathizers began to question their loyalty. Kale, standing beside Captain Jonas, felt a surge of pride. "We did it," he said quietly. Jonas nodded. "But the war is far from over. The Empire will not surrender easily." Lyris approached, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. "Today, we proved that when we stand together, nothing is impossible. This is the moment we reclaim our world." Far above, in the silent void of space, human and Varelian ships prepared for the next phase of daring campaign to push the Empire off Varelia for good, and for the first time in years. Hope was not just a whisper in the dark. 'Twas a roaring flame, lighting the path to freedom. The days following the destruction of the Imperial Supply Depot marked a turning point in the war for Varelia. The Empire's forces were reeling, their hold on the planet slipping like sand through their fingers. Yet, General Varan was not one. To accept defeat, his fury only deepened, and with it, his resolve to crush the rebellion once and for all, from the darkened halls of the Imperial fortress on the planet's northern plateau. Voran's voice thundered over the command channel. "This rebellion ends now. We will bring the full might of the Empire to bear and extinguish this spark before it becomes a fire." Across the planet, the Alliance braced for what would become the final, decisive battle. Commander Lyris, standing alongside Captain Jonas, and her trusted officers surveyed the battle plans etched across the war table. "The Empire will throw everything at us," she said. "This will be the fight that decides our fate." Jonas nodded grimly. "We fight not just for survival, but for the future of every soul on Varelia." The Allied forces took their positions across the jagged landscape near the Imperial fortress. The humans coordinated airstrikes and deployed their advanced drone swarms to harass enemy lines. The Varelian warriors emboldened and battle-hardened. Prepared for close-quarters combat, Kale found himself at the forefront, his rifle steady, his mind sharp. This was more than a fight. It was the culmination of all they had endured. As the first Imperial wave surged forward, the battle erupted into chaos. Explosions tore through the rocky terrain as energy beams lit the sky. The humans' tactical flexibility allowed them to adapt rapidly, countering the Empire's overwhelming numbers with swift, predictable maneuvers. Amid the storm of battle, Kale spotted an Imperial commander directing reinforcements from a fortified ridge. Recognizing the threat, he rallied a small team for a daring strike. "Follow me," Kale whispered, leading the group through the crags and shadows. They moved quickly and silently, using the chaos as cover. When they reached the ridge, Kale's team unleashed a surprise assault, disrupting the enemy's command and throwing reinforcements into disarray. Back at the front line, Commander Lyris coordinated the defense, her voice calm but firm over the comms. "Hold the line, do not let them break through." The humans and Varelians fought with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. Each fallen comrade only fueled their determination. Hours passed like minutes. The Imperial forces, though numerous, were gradually pushed back by the Alliance's unyielding resistance. General Varan, witnessing the unraveling of his plans, unleashed his secret weapon. Massive war machines armed with devastating plasma cannons and impenetrable armor. The ground shook beneath their advance. "Target those machines," Jonas ordered. "Use everything we have." Coordinated strikes from air and ground units focused on the war machine's weak points. Human engineers deployed EMP devices too. Disrupt their systems while Varelian sharpshooters picked off their operators. Kale found himself face to face with one of the towering beasts. Using his knowledge of the machine's design, he slipped beneath its armored hull and planted a charge. The explosion rocked the battlefield, sending the war machine crashing down. The fall of the machines turned the tide. Imperial forces faltered and began retreating under relentless pressure as twilight descended. The Alliance secured the battlefield. Cheers erupted where silence had reigned for so long. Commander Laura surveyed the scene, exhaustion etched on her face, but pride shining in her eyes. We have won today, but this victory belongs to everyone who dared to hope. Captain Jonas clasped her shoulder. The Empire underestimated the power of unity, courage, and the human spirit. Cale, standing amid his comrades, felt a surge of emotion. This was the moment they had fought for the dawn of a new era. Above them, stars twinkled in silent witness. Varelia was free. The dawn broke gently over Varelia, casting soft light on a world scarred by war yet brimming with promise. The smoke of battle had cleared, replaced by the quiet hum of rebuilding and renewal, for the first time in generations. The people of Varelia awoke without fear of imperial oppression. Commander Lyris stood on the steps of the newly established Alliance headquarters, overlooking the gathered crowd. Faces once marked by exhaustion and despair now gleamed with hope and determination. The union of humans and Varelians had not only turned the tide of war, but had forged a bond that would shape the future. Captain Jonas, standing beside her, spoke softly. "We came as strangers, but we leave as brothers and sisters." Cale, standing among his fellow soldiers, watched as children played nearby Varelians and humans alike. Their laughter echoed through the plaza, a melody of peace that filled the air. The path ahead was still long. Cities lay in ruins, families were scattered, and trust had to be rebuilt. Yet, the foundation was strong. Unity, Lyris addressed the crowd. This victory is not the end, but a new beginning. Together, we will heal this world and create a future where freedom and hope are the birthright of every soul. Among the crowd, Meles, the wise elder, nodded approvingly. The flame of hope has been rekindled, and it will burn brighter with each passing day. In the weeks that followed, humans and Varelians worked side by side, clearing rubble, restoring water supplies, and re-establishing trade routes. Technology and tradition blended seamlessly, creating innovations that honored both cultures. Cale found purpose not just in battle, but in teaching the next generation. He trained young sharpshooters and scouts, sharing lessons learned from both human tactics and Varelian wisdom. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Cale stood with Lyris and Jonas, reflecting on how far they had come. "Do you think the Empire will return?" Cale asked quietly. Lyris shook her head. "The Empire's reach is broken here, but we must remain vigilant. Peace is won through more than victory. It requires constant care." Jonas smiled. "And with humans and Varelians standing together, there's no challenge we can't face." The stars above seemed to shimmer with possibility. The war had tested them all, but it had also revealed the unyielding strength of the human spirit and the courage of a world reborn as dawn painted the skies anew. The people of Varelia looked forward, not as conquered, but as free hope had returned, and with it, a promise that no matter how dark the night, light would always find a way.